In the Torah, there's a number of places where we use the phrase ad hayom hazeh, until this day. And there's a question like, what does that mean exactly? Now, if I'm reading this Torah 3,000 years later, am I saying, well, that's how it is now too? Or is it referring to some other period? And there's a whole machloket, this whole debate on Daf 54 of Yoma on this very topic. There's some saying that Ada Yoma Zeh, because the Torah is meant to be forever, until this day means it is going to be that way forever. But then others come and they say, wait a second, but we see a number of things aren't that way. We see, it says a group of people went and they lived in this area and they lived there until this day, Ada Yoma Zeh. And that was, a long time ago, and they're no longer there now as we're talking. And they got moved from place to place. And they go through all these examples where actually, when it says Ada Yom Hazeh, at the time of the Gemara was no longer the case. It didn't exist any longer. And they had to kind of say, okay, Ada Yom Hazeh, right, it can't mean that. It can't mean forever. It means really until the time that things were recorded. And it might even be, at this point in looking at the Torah, perhaps even until the time of Ezra, because it talks about how Ezra came and took the Torah and really kind of set it down in a certain permanent structure. And maybe that's what it's referring to. Maybe it was the day of Ezra's time when he went over everything in the Torah and he kind of redacted the Torah and he says, well, this is how it is until this day. Others don't like that idea. They want to say, no, it's been exactly this point that it was written by Moses and it never, ever changed. In which case, it's an interesting question. Well, what did it mean ad hayom hazeh, until this day? Because clearly Moses was saying, well, it's not until the day he wrote it down, or maybe he was. In certain circumstances that makes sense, certain circumstances it doesn't. So it's an interesting question. What it means, is it forever or not? We seem to conclude, no, it doesn't mean forever. It doesn't mean that it's got to be that way for all time, but it was that way up until a certain point.